Hey YouTube. Hey Reddit. I post these videos on a couple different places. Some people wanted a Reddit shout out too. I'm gonna do a little something different today. I got an errand to Costco to run, and I'm going to use waypoints to create a different route to try to stay off the highway and to try to see if this FSDBeta 10.69.1.1 how the slowdowns are doing, how the traffic interactions are doing. So this is not going to be a repeat test scenario. This is going to be a point A to point B test scenario with 2 laps. So let's see how it goes. I appreciate all the feedback I'm getting on the videos we've had put out since 69.1.1 came out. It seems like there's a lot of people hungry for information and to see the change, and of course just doing drive-alongs and talking about what we're seeing in real time is the easiest way for me to get content out quickly. I definitely do what I can to not overproduce because these videos don't have life very long, so overproduction is really just a waste of time. All right, we got a creep limit here. It's looking pretty good. Sunday traffic here, pretty light. It needs to go to the median probably. There's this little right turn. Let's see how the pose works. And did it get all the way in? Pretty close. I think it did. I don't have the drone up right now, so but that looks pretty good to me. So I don't have any problems. Then we do have oncoming traffic coming to the left, and we do have a car that kind of got behind us here, and it went for it and it saw it. That was nice. That time it went in a nice little gap, went for the left lane. I think the repeater camera in that situation has a better view than I do. So that was a nice unprotected left with what I would call light traffic, with a very good use of the median. Yesterday in the Memorial Park Drive, the one unprotected left I did, the tail of the car stuck out in traffic in an unsafe situation, like it has a couple times in the past. So just kind of the discussion about why it doesn't go all the way into what it's representing as a blue drivable space. I think in yesterday's video you'll see very clearly that it didn't even pull all the way into what it had mapped. One commenter did say they noticed something that I haven't seen yet, that it said it was creeping into the median, and that had I just waited longer it would have gotten there. Well, I didn't have the time to wait, and if you look to the left, there was oncoming traffic that was coming very, very quickly that I needed to get out of the way of. But I guess we can keep a lookout for that new notice to see if there is any sort of creeping alerting about going into the median. A few other people have been posting some unprotected left videos, and the size of the median width-wise is presenting some interesting use cases as to how the drivable space is mapped for the median. So there's a lot of variability out there in the world, and I think it's great to get a lot of other scenarios with other people putting it on video. All right, pretty straightforward intersection here with some medium traffic. Very clearly can't see cars in front of the lead car here. You know, I can see through and see taillights, which I'm sure you can too in the camera. But it looks like it's completely empty in front of me. That's just a product of no radar. I missed that radar for that scenario specifically, being able to see cars in front. Maybe one day we'll get vision through glass. I think being able to see inside a glass is important. There's a lot of cues that I've been noticing the last couple days with people waving us through and different things that happen inside the vehicle. Whether or not that's part of the end game, I don't know. There's a good scenario where the car pulled out of the way and a little bit of an acceleration back up to the speed. This route is going to take me past the one of the scenarios where I've been measuring the double green light situation. I don't know that I'll do a lap necessarily to create the scenario today, but we'll see. Hopefully I time the lights right and we get a good view of that. It seems like most people that have been driving this version, and I don't know how many there are, and to those of you that don't have it yet, I appreciate your frustration, especially when you start to hear good reports and you kind of want it to roll out soon. So, gosh, maybe today, maybe tomorrow, I don't know. We hadn't heard anything from Elon about this, so until we get more information, I can only guess that hopefully this version will roll out to a lot more people. It feels really smooth. I think that's one of the biggest general comments I've heard from people about .1.1 is that it's the acceleration and the jerkiness seems to have been smoothed out a little bit. Okay, shucks. I just was getting ready to comment about our double green light scenario, and it looks like one of the lights turned red, so it's a green light followed by a red light. So I'm guessing we're going to get a deceleration due to the traffic signal. Let's see if we see when we get the deceleration. If we go right under the light, and there it is. Now that deceleration was timed exactly with when it needed to slow down for the red light, but it's still the same. Okay, gosh, I can't do it. I have to know. The scenario didn't get created, so I'm gonna do the loop here and see if I can create a couple of these double green light scenarios. There's probably a few of you watching that are chuckling because I wasn't able to not do it. I guess that's just kind of the way I am here. So I'm going to just do a scenario where I turn it around and put it in front of that green light, I hope. And we can see what it does here. See what the remapping does. Hopefully it'll reroute and we can get the full scenario created. All right, we're re-engaged, and that reroute will work. We change lanes, that's okay. We're at the speed. Let's see, we got a double green. Let's see if it pauses. Ah, there it is. Same exact thing. Okay, so that answers the question with only one scenario, that in 69.1.1, the double green light pause is still there. That's a little frustrating, but they didn't put in the release notes they were working on that. So I'm just going to disengage and do another U-turn here. And for those of you that wonder if U-turns are functioning, they are definitely not functioning for me. Let me see if we can get one more test scenario here. All right, it should remap. All right, we're back up to speed. And there it is. Okay, pause, and then a reacceleration. Okay, so it's the same. Maybe on the way home I'll twist that up just a little bit more to see if we get any different behaviors. Always time for an experiment. The road that we're going to be using to get over to Costco, it's interesting it hasn't rerouted that. It's still got that U-turn in there. Well, I guess that's because that's where I re-began. Well, shucks, I want it to go on this road here. So I guess I even tried to use a waypoint to force it, but it still insisted on using the highway. I guess I need a different waypoint to create that scenario. So I'll probably manually have it reroute there. Okay, I'm disengaging just to do a manual reroute here. I'll re-engage it once the planner decides to use this non-highway road. This road should be pretty good because there's some railroad tracks that I know it won't recognize, some kind of narrow roads, They are marked, but they're definitely narrower and a little windy, which can kind of create some scenarios that are good. Okay, so it's remapped there. That's good. All right. Lost our center line there, but it maintained it okay. Didn't kind of weave anything when the yellow line kind of just worn out yellow line. Obviously the rendering kind of showed that it was gone, but it didn't freak out at all. Okay, here we've got kind of a railroad track. It's well marked with signs, paint, and everything, and it can't hit it at 40. Okay, I'm going to disengage there just because that's way too fast, and give a quick mark for the traffic. And I'm just going to go ahead and cancel my route and reset it here so that the Costco is in there. Okay, that works. And re-engaged. So this isn't quite as skinny as the Birkenhead Road that creates the unmarked road scenario. Obviously we have a center line here too, and there is a white line on the right edge that Birkenhead unmarked road scenario does not have. But it does kind of have grass right up to the edge in traffic that's kind of opposing in a pretty little bit of a slowdown there on that turn. That was okay, but I felt a pause there. A little bit more of an aggressive slowdown there. Not sure what that was about, other than just coming around the curve with a, felt like it was more of a I can't see pause there than a speed pause. Difficult to determine though. Yeah, this is all working good. Okay, so what I wanted to know was on this road with these markings and these oncoming cars, we do have a pedestrian that just jaywalked out there. Let's see how it handles that. A little bit of an early pause, but then very quickly recognized it wasn't any concern and re-accelerated good. So it did not overreact on that. That was very good. Yeah, this road is straightforward. I hadn't driven this in a long time, and the interactions I'm getting here are perfect. So I wasn't sure with this two-lane road how it's going to behave, so I think we'll just say that they got this one. Now we're crossing a busier intersection here. It should be straightforward with the street, signal, stop signal, but there are some lanes that need to get correctly in the right spot. So hopefully the plan will do that. And very quickly we want to get in that lane. So that was very good. And this is the exact lane we needed. So, nice job. All right, take a look at the presentation here. We've got our green light. Emergency vehicles on the other side. No lights flashing, but still just rendering them as regular trucks, it looks like. So this intersection has changed a lot. And while it looks like a straight shot here on the map, it is not a straight shot. It is completely remapped here. So Vision's going to have to do this on its own. And let's see how it handles it. Please slow down. There we go. Okay, the slowdown was good. Completely doing this off of Vision because the mapping does not have it. It's well marked though, so the lights and the paint and everything is helping it. Okay, it wants to get in this right lane and it changed back to the left lane. Not sure why it had that little hiccup there. Okay, so that, I've got a red, I got a green arrow over here, and it thought it could proceed. So that was a mistake. I marked it real quick there. But if you can see here, the map has completely got this different. So these no turn on red signs are to jump on the interstate here, that they've added a ramp. So that's not for us. If I engage here, now that that light is red, it should stay. Okay, so that it did. And there's our green. How's it gonna go? Okay, it's not going because it misinterpreted that red as its light. So I intervened with the accelerator there just to kind of give it a hint to go, and it proceeded. So that unmapped intersection confused it with the way the lights were represented, and it's a tough one. That's human AGI there, right? Understanding, you know, the nuances of the way some of these intersections are built. Obviously, this is completely different. I've got a nice arrow here. but it's creeping forward with a red arrow. What are you doing? We can't go. It's not going to go, I hope. If it thinks this is a yield, that's unfortunate. I think it was going to go for a yield there. Hopefully now it won't with that red light to the right, and I'm just going to mark that there. But it creeped well forward into the crosswalk. Okay, I had to intervene there. It proceeded under a red arrow. Okay, that hadn't happened in a while. I got all reds up there, so I don't even know why it could think it has a yield in this situation, and they're all even rendered. And, you know, I'm underneath one of them also, so it had two red arrows. And there's our green, so I'll just go ahead and proceed, and we'll talk about this one as we head into the parking lot. Yeah, running red lights is not acceptable. That's basic perception control there that we have to have right. I have no reason to understand why it got confused there. Unlike the previous one, that it was pretty easy for me to see the confusion with a mixture of red and green and not knowing which one was correct. But in that scenario, there were 3 reds and they were even rendered as red, and it started to proceed. Okay, well, that is the end of leg 1, and we had some interesting interactions there. One unmapped intersection and one unfortunate red light intersection. I will take a break here, and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. So I engaged this. Well, it should not be wanting to turn right there. Hopefully we'll figure this out. I'm just out of the... Yeah, okay, we're going left here, and the planner shows us going left. Obviously getting out of a parking lot is not a function that FSD brags about yet, but that general direction, I'm confused why it wanted to go right there. Okay, so we're leaving the Costco parking lot. Second leg here. It is always a little tricky here on some of these roads. That was a pretty wide swerve right towards the curb. This intersection is well marked, but like here, okay, so we have a right on red scenario here with a red arrow. These cars are stopping. This should be a fairly straightforward one because those cars are turning left. It should go when it deems itself safe. But it's holding on that red arrow. I don't have anybody behind me at the moment. And now that the cars are going, it's a little more obvious that I should not go. But I have seen it do a right on red here after stopping, so I'm not sure why it didn't that time. Maybe it's repenting a little bit for its behavior on the last leg. That other red arrow, that's a joke. Let's see what happens here. This is kind of busy. It might just wait because it's not even trying to creep. Lots of traffic here. The lights are pretty much aligned with the lane, so it should understand this pretty straightforward. There's a green arrow, and now it's proceeding. Very cautiously proceeding, though. Cautiously. Oof. If I was behind me, I'd be like, what are you doing? Okay, now it jumped over, and this is going back into that unmapped intersection. Now we're going the different direction through it, though. So it's a little bit more straightforward because it should be able to just proceed straight. I can see the straightaway here, but the other side of this intersection is where we had some trouble before. I'm feeling pretty good about this at the moment, so I think we're going to be fine here. And away we go. A little bit slow on the accelerations, both that time and at that last red light. But that's such a personal preference. If you notice here, this left turn lane is interesting and new, though. So that is unmapped at the moment, to my understanding. I don't, yeah, well, maybe it's in there. A little hard to tell. All right, that truck just did a the equivalent of one of my unprotected lefts, crossing 2 lanes, had a little median there. Just another point that these type of turns are everywhere here. Obviously this highway is a little bit slower and only 2 lanes. We should be taking a left up here at the intersection. I really wish blinkers would come on when the speed started decelerating. When they come on seems to be more distance from a turn related. Like in my video yesterday at Memorial Park, you know, there was a little S-curve, and in that S-curve it turned the blinker on 2 or 3 times just because of the amount of curvature in the road ahead. And where it turned them on is kind of like the distance from the curve and at the speed you were going. So I guess the same sort of logic is applied getting in a turn lane and things like that. But the intent of a driver to get into a turn lane is pretty important as soon as the driver starts decelerating. I've made that comment many times, so I don't know what the right way to incorporate that is, but I think that would be a better way of doing it. There may be some use cases where it's not the reason to do it, and I don't think of those very often. All right, protected green arrow here, going in with the arrow on the same as the light. That was just fine. Definitely no control issues on that one or perception. All right, this is a road that I probably haven't driven with the cameras on before. It's Blanding Boulevard in Jacksonville, Florida. You know, it kind of goes a long way. In certain areas, the traffic is insane. In this section of the road, it's fairly well marked and fairly wide. Just a few intersections here with perhaps some lane changes to get in the right lane coming up, but this should not be anything unusual for the car. So it chose to get into that lane and then chose to get out. I'm not sure why right there. It is painted as a bus lane. It does turn to a right turn only right there. So I think that's what it was. I think it changed lanes and then realized, and here we are, okay, we're a right turn only lane here. So that's interesting. So the planner got ahead of itself, corrected, and then came back, which might give a little insight into how far ahead the planner is thinking at that speed. Interesting little twist there. I'm not sure, but that was a unique situation. Again, this drive here, you know, when the roads are well marked, you know, and this is sometimes when I say it's getting really good at the middle of the ride, you know, or to a pilot to the middle of the flight, it's really getting solid. It's the beginning and end and the edge cases that are creating scenarios that are just so out of the norm that there's definitely still a little bit of work to be done. But on the basics of the middle of a drive, if the lane markings are good and the light configurations are not too complex, it's pretty darn reliable. It should be pretty straightforward. It's in the correct lane. It's not a green light, so it's protected on the right turn. It shouldn't be an issue here. Yeah, great. Had a bicycle cross the road there, way out in the distance. I never saw it rendered on the map when it was in my lane. I saw it as the driver, and obviously I didn't need to slow down at all because I could see his rate across the road. But that's a good scenario where if the car did see it, it did not overreact. Okay, this stoplight here is an intersection with railroad tracks, and there's a very clear sign right here: do not stop on tracks. This is one of those busy intersections with railroad tracks that the intersection can take so long that if you did stop on the tracks and then 2 or 3 minutes went by for the light to turn green, you could be in a bad situation if a train started coming while you were on the tracks. You know, in less busy intersections, you know, you might be able to back up or turn around, but in this multi-lane intersection, it's pretty important to honor that sign there. I have not ever seen the Tesla acknowledge that intentionally of not stopping on the tracks. There usually is a stop line, and I don't see it rendered here right now, in front of the railroad tracks, and then there's another stop line on the other side of the tracks for the red light. The Tesla right now only honors one of those stop lines or the other as if it was for the red light. So I've seen a scenario where it stopped perfectly on this line and honored the red light, and then it left all that space in front of it where there was room for other cars. And I don't know how to improve that other than acknowledge the lines, and maybe if you saw two of them, recognize that there's a railroad track here in the middle. I mean, there's visually enough things to look at a camera, and even if you notice, the paint on the screen is representing railroad tracks, so it should be fairly straightforward perception problem, but it's still not implemented yet. All right, that control was good. It took the drive right on around. Had a lead car kind of controlling its speed, but that was fine. All right, it's doing a good job getting in the right lane for a turn that is a mile away. So as long as it stays in this lane, that was good. Don't mind being over here. I mean, obviously this car is going the speed limit here, so that's perfect. I like it that it's thinking that far ahead. I wonder if that lane placement there ties into the release note that's on this version about the deep lane networks and how they're trying to improve the lane selection earlier. All right, so this is coming up close to the end of the second leg. There's probably going to be a lot of fast-forwarded video here. I don't want you to just sit here and watch me driving on straight and narrow roads. Obviously, you can slow it down if you're interested in some of the visualizations. You know, how do you grade a drive that had a red light being run? You know, it did a lot of really, really good things, but it completely failed a very important intersection. So if this was a high school, you know, driver's ed driver's test, it definitely would have failed for that one event. You know, if you were to say that was one bad strike against, you know, a lot of goods, you know, hey, you did okay. But that's kind of the standard deviation away from, you know, what is considered good driving or average driving. So if it had to run that red light, if I hadn't had some of those other kind of a little less minor issues, I'd probably be going, this was a great drive. But I do feel the smoothness in this version. I do feel the acceleration and the control smoothness is much smoother than the last one. But hey, getting from point A to point B is pretty straightforward. When you get out onto the roads, it's kind of getting out onto the roads that sometimes it has a little bit of a problem with at the beginning and end. All right, I'll put this up for you today. Hope you enjoy it. Leave some comments below. Have a great day.